Hello everybody. So myself, Guru Raj MH, working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Civil Engineering, Maharaja Institute of Technology, Mysore. So today we are gathered here to discuss the important topic, that is global warming. So welcome back to green buildings. So nowadays everybody thinking about green buildings, the green concepts, then building the structures with some greeneries, adopting the natural resources and minimizing the water supply systems or the utilization of water supply, as well as minimizing wastewater which is exposed towards the nature. So together we can call it as green building, or the building is said to be green building by adopting these many parameters like adopting solar facility systems as well as minimizing the natural resources, or we need to restrict the natural resources. If we are building expecting maximum number of or maximum amount of natural resources, so being an engineer, being a designer, we should minimize the consumption of natural resources, because that natural resources leads scarcity of basic materials like building materials. As we all know, nowadays availability of sand seems to be difficult, then availability of coarse aggregate, that is aggregate required for construction of buildings or construction of any structure, is difficult. And at the same time we need to minimize the usage of cement also, because as the previous researchers says that around 1 ton cement exhibits 1 ton carbon dioxide to atmosphere. So the reason behind that is amorphous usage of those materials, building materials, especially for the construction industry, because 40% of the carbon gas emissions takes place due to the building materials. And at the same time, if we are using construction and demolition waste for our next projects or upcoming project, automatically usage of natural resources will also going to minimize. So these are all the reasons behind that why we need to adopt green building concept or green building technology. In that, along with utilization of the natural resources in a minimum manner as early as possible, as simple as possible, and at the same time, because we can't avoid structures, yes or no. So structures are one of the main parameters for infrastructure. If the structures are good, if the infrastructure facilities are good, then only we can say yes, we are developing, whether it is related to a village, taluka level, district level, state level, even international, nationally, internationally we need to recognize. The only reason behind that is we should have a very good infrastructure. So for infrastructure development, construction of buildings, construction of structures is very much essential, and at the same time adopting these green techniques within the building or within the structure is one of the leading wing. So that is very much essential for civil engineers especially. In that we are in third module now, that is global warming. So the main contents behind the global warming, then carbon footprints, then green building concepts, then embodied energy of the materials or embodied energy of materials which are used in the structure, then comparison of green building with respect to conventional building, then finally life cycle cost of buildings. So these are all the main contents to be get involved in global warming and their effects. So first we will discuss global warming. So nowadays, as we all know, the term warming, first of course globally we are discussing, because civil engineers are the builders of the nations, what we call easily. So they are the builders of the nations, especially engineers are the builders of the nations, and at the same time without all these structures we can't fulfill that yes, the country or the state is grown like anything. So infrastructure or structures are very much essential, and at the same time by increasing the construction activities globally we are increasing the temperature. So here the term global warming is nothing but the increase of temperature within the earth's surface that leads carbon emission, to the atmosphere that creates the temperature variations within the surface that leads enormous usage of water supply systems, and by increased temperature even evaporation of the natural resources called water supply systems also takes place. So, that leads scarcity of water supply systems. So, the reason behind that is one, that is construction activities or improper construction activities or improper design of the structures. All these concepts leads warmness, that is increasing the temperature of this earth and its surfaces, that leads a huge disaster for the upcoming days. So, to observe or to discuss about the global warming. So, global warming is the increase of earth's average surface temperature due to the effect of greenhouse gas such as carbon dioxide emissions from burning fossil fuels, and also at the same time using fossil fuels or burning some materials or fossil fuels is not only the criteria for increasing the temperature of this earth, it also consists of deforestation. Even if you cut the jungle also leads a huge disaster, that also leads global warming. So, globally of course, even you can observe even Mysore like cities, the temperature day by day the temperature is rising. The regular normal temperature become 30, 35 right now, even in summer also. So, the southern part they have reached 40 degrees centigrade. That means, so the deforestation or the awareness towards the public regarding plantations, so that we have to take care. Otherwise, so that globally we need to of course, this topic become a global topic now. So, everyone thinking about how to minimize the temperature, how to adopt the green building concepts. So, how to minimize the natural resources. So, that leads the carbon emission to this atmosphere. Some gases that contributes to global warming and their man-made sources. Of course, some of them are naturally they are increasing the temperature of this earth, and some of them they were man-made sources are there. For example, manufacturing of plastic, then burning of that plastic, because plastic easily it should not going to dissolve. Yes, or if you place it in any manner, so it not supposed to be dissolved. Yes, or no? So that even if you burn it, so that the huge amount of carbon emission takes place. So that leads global warming. And here we need to concentrate the main gases. They are going to contribute towards the global warming. One is carbon dioxide. So, from power plant industries, from manufacturing cars, manufacturing of trucks, and then airplanes also, they are all the leading manufacturing wing that exhibits huge carbon dioxide to atmosphere. And at the same time, even deforestation is also responsible around 25% of carbon emission to this atmosphere. Apart from carbon dioxide, methane is also one of the main gas which is the main source for this carbon emission that leads to global warming. So, that come from rice paddies and bogs. Then the third one is nitrous oxides. They are from nylon and nitric acid productions, fertilizers especially which are used in agricultural or the agricultural related things. So, development of or manufacturing of fertilizers or manufacturing of man-made manures. So, that is also one of the reason behind development of these types of gases which are harmful to this earth as well as earth surface, as well as they are the main causes of the global warming. The next important thing we are supposed to discuss is the causes of global warming. So, what are the main causes for global warming? So, right now we have discussed regarding huge manufacturing of man-made structures. Some of them they are going to dissolve by means of natural processes, by means of other artificial processes, or by means of other grinding or minimizing those whole mass into small scale. So, these are all the processes. We can process it and we can distribute or we can dump it in on the surface of the earth or below the surface of the earth. But all materials are not supposed to be dissolved. So, some of them they will have their own or the same position or same sizes. So, they should not supposed to decompose easily. So, how to decompose them? Burning is not only the process, because if you burn it, automatically you are minimizing the size, but at the same time you are increasing the carbon emission to this atmosphere. So, that creates certain causes, and at the same time we need to observe the effects of global warming. So, global warming occurs when carbon dioxide and other air pollutants collect in the atmosphere and absorb sunlight and solar radiations that have bounced off the surface, Earth's surface. Normally this radiation would escape into space, but these pollutants, which can last for years of years to contribute gases to this atmosphere. So, these two parameters, especially the causes and effects. So, these two terms are very much essential for global warming. So, by increased human comfort, for example, nowadays our comfort zone is also reaches in such a way that we want a luxurious life. So, we need to build the structures in such a way that, so there should be specific amenities or separate, what we can say, amenities area, or the area reserved for all other aspects of buildings. Okay. So, even usage of vehicles also more, because nowadays within a house, so that we have more than one vehicles. So, that one of the reason behind global warming. So, we need to observe the causes and their effects. So, first we need to observe causes of global warming. That means manufacturing of vehicles, huge nowadays. That is the only reason behind that why we need to develop or why we need to use electrical vehicles now. Yes or no? So, day by day the awareness towards usage of electrical vehicles is more. The reason behind that is global warming. Causes and effects, that also continues with the average surface temperature of Earth is maintained by balance of various forms of solar and terrestrial radiations. So, here we need to observe, we need to concentrate on the temperature also. So, at the same time, even temperature is going to rise by means of the construction activities what you are supposed to adopt within the buildings, and at the same time what type of materials we are using, for manufacturing of concrete or building materials, or the process of buildings. Even the component of the buildings also we need to select in such a way that is also having minimum rise in temperature or minimum emission of carbon dioxide takes place to the atmosphere. So, otherwise what happens once we are understanding the global warming definition and the causes of global warming, because if everyone is thinking about infrastructure development, construction of huge skyscrapers or multi-storied buildings, yes or no. So, by constructing all these things, automatically directly or indirectly emission takes place. Even at the time of manufacturing of those construction activities, even it starts with the processing of those materials. For example, construction of buildings which requires aggregates. So, first we need to select a quarry, that is stone quarries, yes or no. So, we need to excavate the earth, we need to drill the piles, we need to blast it. So, that of course, for all these things it requires some resource, whether it is manpower, money, machineries, heavy equipments, whatever you can consider. So, all these are resources we are investing on extracting the materials, basic materials required for carbon dioxide, basic materials required for construction of buildings. So, after extracting, we need to supply it to the crushers or stone crushers, so that we need to cut it into suitable pieces. So, that also require huge machineries, huge equipments to lift it, to load it, to unload it. That also consumes some vehicles, yes or no, that exhibit some carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, yes or no. That means, even though if you transport it to crushers or some stone quarries, stone crushers, they will also cut it into different some small pieces, okay, 40 mm to 4.75 mm size. So, that also leads some natural resources. We need to cut it out, we need to separate it out, dust will get exhibits, so that we need to minimize the dust. Yes, sir. So, that all leads directly or indirectly rising the temperature towards the earth surface. So, at the same time, nowadays we are experiencing that availability of natural resources, like especially limestone is already gone to a lower level, and availability of coarse aggregate we have reached at dead storage level. That means we can't go more than that surface. We have reached certain level of that stone quarry or stone surface, so that we can't even dig more. Yes or no? We need to select other some other place to extract the stones. So, nowadays even availability of river sand, of course, it's completely vanished, because we have taken river sand. Nowadays it's become that mining of river sand is become offense, or it's illegal. So, at the same time we need to extract M sand, that is, we need to manufacture the M sand, manufactured sand from the same stone quarries. That also leads the minute cutting of those aggregates into less than 4.75 mm sieve. That all leads usage of vehicles in a in such a way that even we can't imagine that. So, that all these activities leads towards the global warming. If we are neglecting all these causes, effects of global warming, that is one of the most important what you can say, man-made disasters. Yes or no? If we are not controlling the rise of temperature or the warmness or warming of this temperature on the surface, below the surface or above the surface of this earth, effects are in such a way that even we can't tolerate. Nowadays majority of the countries, states, or even some villages, they are suffering from this global warming. Automatically it affects on the health, public health which are living in that premises, and at the same time it affects the groundwater table. Nowadays in ancient days, around 2-3 decades back, if you excavate the earth, if you have a borewell below the 50 feet probably, so that, or 20 feet, 30 feet itself, you may get good water supply system, because groundwater is good. Groundwater table, recharge process, all these things are in a good manner. But nowadays we have reached in such a way that because of our activities, our unforeseen activities towards the construction of buildings, that all leads minimization of groundwater table. So, we are not concentrating on how to recharge the groundwater table. So, that all leads to the human health, or it will have a huge impact on human health. That is also one of the effect of global warming. And at the same time, if you are increasing these types of burning of fossil fuels or deforestation, then if you have improper construction activities, or if you are not adopting green building concepts, automatically their effects are going to be observed in each of our activities. Like even we can't able to survive probably in upcoming days. If the temperature goes in the same manner, we can't even survive, because every day the temperature got raised in such a way that, so that without fan or without AC we can't able to sustain in our own house. So, the problem behind that is global warming. So, being a civil engineers, being a designers or building developers, we need to observe the effect of global warming also. So, causes we discussed, effects we discussed. Then the main important funda, how we are supposed to control. So, before going to concentrate on control, first we need to concentrate on contribution of building towards global warming. That is one of the most important concepts behind global warming. So, contribution of buildings towards the global warming. So, nowadays we can observe construction activities are reached in such a way that, so we want air conditioning systems even in small 30-40 site or 2 BHK residential building. We are supposed to plan artificial ventilation systems like fixing of air conditioning or fixing of air coolers. Yes or no? So, without all these things we are not able to sustain, we are not supposed to design the buildings. Yes or no? And at the same time, even within the buildings also we have adopted some techniques in such a way that they are having maximum consumptions of natural resources. It might be electricity we can observe, it might be water supply, it might be the natural resources you are supposed to use, the wood part we are supposed to use within the buildings. So, they all have certain contribution towards the global warming, because if you want to cut the jungle for or cut the plants or trees for door frames or window frames or frames of ventilators or for partitions of or partitions by using woodwork. So, all these leads global warming, because we need to extract it from the nature. So, that is why the contribution towards global warming from buildings is nowadays more, and at the same time previous researchers or so many researchers or builders, they are in line with how to minimize the natural resources, which are helpful, though they are helpful for construction activities, we need to minimize the consumptions. For that we are supposed to go ahead with alternative building materials. Yes, so there are n number of materials are there which are alternative to the building materials. We can use even plywoods, then we can use some asbestos sheets, then we can use some pozzolanic materials. Pozzolanic materials are nothing but your the byproducts like fly ash based products, then ferrocement based products. Even we can have a replacement for reinforcement like fiber based products. Also, these are all the materials available within the in the market, and they are suitable for manufacturing. I mean, they are suitable for construction activities. Yes or no? So, they leads, some previous research or previous statistics says that the utilization of fossil fuels like coal and petroleum has been increasing steadily for more than 200 years after the invention of the steam engine and IC engines. So, even in mechanical wing also we are using machines in such a way that they are more consumption towards usage of fossil fuels as well as petroleum products. So, that also leads global warming, though we have commitment towards the manufacturing of those mechanical devices, but at the same time we need to think about global warming. So, the reason behind that is we need to adopt the technique in such a way that so that we can minimize at least at some extent of these types of machines. So, that will in turn minimize usage of petroleum products. So, the reason behind that is right now we are thinking about electrical bikes, electrical cars, then solar based vehicles, then even within the buildings also majority around 95% of the buildings they are using one or the other way solar based products like water heaters, solar based water heaters or solar cookers, then solar lighting systems, even some of street lights. Majority of the corporation limits, majority of the urban development authorities or majority of the gram panchayat, village panchayat, they have adopted solar energy systems, because sun is the only source for us, so which will never ends. Yes or no? So, that we need to adopt technique or we need to adopt the skill related to these things, so that will automatically minimizes the global warming at some extent. And these buildings are going to contribute more. So, previous statistics says that the importance of buildings in the energy scenario can be understood by the fact that in European Union 40% of the total energy consumption is accounted by building sectors. Even in India also it reaches around 30% contribution. So, the contribution of construction activities or the contribution towards the global warming from the building sectors is reaches 20 to 30% in India, even it is even more in some western countries. So, the reason behind that is we have not seen all these parameters, because if I am out of the box, if I observe out of the box, out of the green building concepts, so that I am not supposed to worry much on global warming and all these things. So, that I am comfortable with my such activities or my requirements. Yes or no? So, I am supposed to construct my buildings with my choice. I am not I may have the least concern about the nature. Yes or no? So, if we lead in the same manner, automatically we all will suffer a lot. So, being a designer, being a contractor, we should also have global warming, then contribution of buildings towards the global warming or towards the carbon emission. Then what are the techniques I am supposed to adopt to minimize global warming. So, these points we should keep it in mind at the time of design of buildings. Yeah, even this contribution also takes place towards embodied energy systems. In upcoming discussion, we are supposed to discuss in detail about embodied energy systems. So, each material has some energy level or some level of energy, I can say. So, starting from the extraction of materials to the delivery towards the site or delivery to the site, it consumes some of the energies. So, that is nothing but embodied energy, we can say. Okay. Contribution of buildings. So, 40% of the world's energy use is due to the buildings. So, 40% of world's energy, and at the same time 90% of the total energy of building is consumed during building lifetime. So, throughout the entire lifetime of this building, it exhibits 90% consumption of the energies, and at the same time 10% of consumption is linked to the materials and construction of buildings. So, even consumption of materials also leads global warming. So, these are all contributes global warming in their own domain, in their specific nature of work within the building sectors. The next important topic we are supposed to discuss today is carbon footprints. Carbon footprints. So, global warming we discussed, their causes, effects, what about the contribution of building materials towards global warming or towards the emission of gases. So, that part we discussed in detail. Okay. So, at the same time carbon footprints. So, once the carbon emission takes place, though we are supposed to minimize the carbon dioxide level by adopting some techniques, or we may have some methodology to treat it before leaving it to, or before dumping, or before end up that particular concepts to nature, we have certain treatment processes, but these carbon will have certain footprints, will have certain milestones, will have certain footprints, they have certain what we can say milestones behind them. So, first we need to understand carbon footprints. So, the name itself says buildings and their constructions together account for 36% of the global energy use and 39% of energy related carbon dioxide emissions annually. So, while observing these statistics, so we need to think about in such a way that on what principles, on what are all the principles I am supposed to adopt to minimize the carbon emissions, to minimize the carbon dioxide emission to our atmosphere. So, according to the United States or United Nations Environment Program, The United States residential and commercial buildings accounts for 40% of energy consumptions according to US Energy Information Administration. So, even in India also that statistic level has reached 20 to 30%. But at the same time, though we have minimum in number, that is why in majority of our village, region, taluka level or even district level, we are getting fresh air, fresh water. But if you observe some metropolitan cities, yes or no, for example, Bengaluru, Delhi, Kolkata, Mumbai, so that they are really suffering a lot, especially for this fresh air and fresh water related issues. So, we need to, if we are not concentrating more on the carbon dioxide emission or the carbon footprints or the global warming or your own practices towards the building the buildings or building the structures, otherwise probably in upcoming days even every city may have that problem of scarcity towards the fresh water, scarcity towards fresh air. We need to suffer a lot. That will also have adverse effect on human health. That leads so many problems related to the personality development, related to health of a public, so related to wealth of a public, of course. Yes, or if health is not maintained properly, automatically national wise or internationally, nationally or even locally also we need to suffer a lot in terms of economy, because it also disturbs the economic systems. So, that is why we need to adopt certain skills, certain set of green building concepts towards minimization of carbon footprints. Global efforts to reduce carbon emission. So, majority of states, countries, even majority of the villages, they have taken some decisions, they have adopted some practices how to minimize the carbon footprints. Yes or no? So, for example, if we have a small scale industry or large scale industry, instead of leaving that entire gas towards the atmosphere, why can't we treat it within the structure or within the industry, so that at least emission of that carbon dioxide towards towards the nature is supposed to be minimized by 25%, 30%, 40%, something like that. So, by adopting certain techniques, yes or no. So, majority of even our Indian industries, small scale or large scale industries, they have adopted these techniques. So, by treating these types of gases or liquid wastes, simply dumping it towards the natural resources, we need to treat it, we need to minimize the pollutants, we need to minimize the waste, whether it is a solid waste or liquid waste, whatever, or whether the gas also, we need to treat it, then we need to leave it to atmosphere, so that at least we can have minimum effect towards the nature. Yeah, some previous literature, this says that around 2050, so we may have to adopt certain carbon emission or minimum carbon emission type of skills or type of procedures, so that we can have a beautiful life in upcoming days. Otherwise, by 2050, so it is difficult for each individual to lead our life with normality, with the normal things. Even deforestation is also one of the main reason behind that. So, at the same time, so even at the present scenario, so public got some awareness why we need to grow the plants, what is the usage of doing plantations, why we need to safeguard the plants. So, we may have that concern. Nowadays, so many campaigns are going here and there to educate others regarding we should not supposed to cut the jungles, or deforestation is not a good thing. So, even nationally, international level also deforestation related issues are rising. So, we are also the main contributors in this global warming, because deforestation, especially for urbanization process, if rapid urbanization rapid urbanization uh, that also leads deforestation, because for example, if you are supposed to develop a new city, or if you are supposed to develop a new what you can say layout, so for that we are supposed to select land, okay. So that land consists of some plants, trees, huge trees probably, yes or no. So to develop that layout we are supposed to cut the jungles, we are supposed to cut the trees, yes or no. So that we are supposed to make it flat, so without any trees or plants. So these types of rapid urbanization also leads global warming, also leads carbon emission, that also leads carbon footprints. So rapid urbanization is also one of the main reason behind carbon footprints. And usage of fertilizers nowadays, as we all know, because of population growth and because of minimum agricultural land available, or minimum or reduced interest towards the agriculture, we are facing lots of problem related to our food, especially food grains or the food products. So that's why that also leads economic imbalance, that also leads increasing the price of these food products, yes or no. So that in turn affects in every sectors, yes or no. So for that, within the land we are supposed to grow more crops, that means we are supposed to depend on more fertilizers. So if in ancient days they were supposed to grow the crops for the period of 1 year, but similarly if the population growth takes place but availability of land is same or even less than that, so automatically within a year we are supposed to have 2 crop systems or 2 period of crops. So within a 6 months we are supposed to grow the crops, that means we are supposed to have manure or fertilizers in such a way that will give more proteins, vitamins or required things to those plants, that also leads health related issues. But nowadays we have reached in such a way that within a 3 months we are supposed to grow the crops. So that means we are using more fertilizers, so more chemicals, that also leads, even manufacturing of those chemicals also leads carbon footprints or global warming, and at the same time usage of those fertilizers to land. So fertility of land will also destroy, so the land, the soil quality will also going to destroy, we are in turn minimizing the strength of the soil, yes or no. That is why more number of crop rotations may not be possible in that particular land if you are using more fertilizers. So even usage of chemicals will also be the reason behind carbon footprints. Okay. So these are all the parameters, or these are all the things to be considered in mind while designing green buildings. So the term green building is not only related to the green campus, or if you are planting the trees on rooftop or within the premises, so my building is said to be green building, not like that, yes or no, because green building in turn consists of so many other parameters. So it consists of the usage of solar energy systems, okay. So what are all the techniques we have adopted, but nowadays there is a tremendous growth in infrastructure takes place, and at the same time present young engineers, they are thinking about the sensor based systems, like sensor based water supply system, sensor based waste water supply systems, sensor based electrical supply systems, sensor based openings like doors, windows, yes or no. If someone is doing some work within this room, then only the fans or lights are supposed to switch on. If no one is working here, so that automatically that should stop functioning in, yes or no. So the reason behind that is sensor based. Otherwise, because we are human beings, we have our own limitations, yes or no. Though we have aware of, we should not supposed to use these resources more than required, yes or no, which is required for me, yes or no. Even throughout the entire day I am supposed to waste the electricity, yes or no. Even though if I am using it or not, I am least bothered about that, yes or no. So these types of things are overcome by means of sensor based monitoring systems. So we have certain voice recognized sensor, we have we are supposed to fit some cameras so that if anybody is working on that particular area, then only those lights and fans will switch on, otherwise automatically they will switch off. If someone is moving from one place to another place, if the movement is there, then only these sensors will observe and they will start functioning it. So, these are all the techniques we are supposed to adopt within the buildings so that we can minimize these natural resources. Okay. So, being a contractors, being a designers, being a civil engineers, or being a human being, it is our responsibility to adopt some green building techniques in our structures or infrastructures. Okay. So, with this, well, we are supposed to wind up the global warming, their causes, effects, and carbon footprints, and the contribution of building towards the global warming. So, in next class, we will discuss regarding embodied energy systems of or embodied energy of buildings, building materials. So, what is embodied energy? Why we are supposed to calculate the embodied energy, or what all the parameters are there in embodied energy calculations, and all these things we will discuss in upcoming class. Thank you.